Hey guys, I'm Destiny. This is Monday Mail number 17. We have a few less controversial questions this time. Hopefully we don't rustle anybody's Jim Jams. I'm going to go ahead and hop into these three right now. The first question comes from Kaha11, and he is quoting Reckful, saying, "Being poor is kind of fun." There's a link to a YouTube video, and he says, as a person who is poor for a short period, do you think his statements are somewhat valid? So to give some context here, Reckful is saying that he wishes he was poor because he thinks it's more fun to be poor because then you have something to struggle for. Whenever you talk about how a person makes a statement, I think it's important to contextualize the statement that they're making. Anybody can say anything, and any statement can be incredibly naive and stupid, and any statement can be relatively profound. But it's really important to understand the context in which the person makes a statement. So in and of itself, claiming that being poor is fun because you have something to struggle for in a vacuum is obviously pretty dumb, because being poor, you don't really view it as an exciting challenge, right? Because I think the feelings of like hopelessness and an overwhelming sense of dread and the idea that you are making no progress in your life, right? There's a lot of negative feelings that go along with being truly fucked financially that a lot of people who haven't been there don't really understand. And Reckful probably, obviously, in his life hasn't really been in that scenario. Before I get too deep into this, I do want to draw a quick distinction. When I say being poor, I don't mean like being a student in college or really ever being a kid. Basically, the idea that the things that fuck your life being poor are, I think, in my opinion, it's after you've entered adulthood and you are financially destitute and you're fucked. You don't have any future to look forward to. Anybody can survive being poor for brief periods of time, or even for extended periods of time, if you know that there's something on the other side, right? If you've got school to go to every day, if you've got college to look forward to, if you've got a career to look forward to. But once you're actually an adult and you've started to accumulate some debt and you have no education, no job advancement, no great opportunities, that's when I think being in financial ruin really starts to fuck with your mind, because you go from being in a bad state in your life to being in a bad state in your life indefinitely with no end in sight. I guess just kind of defining the difference between the two. Because I know a lot of people are like, oh no, I know what it's like to be poor. I was in college, I had to work a job or whatever. And it's like, oh, it's kind of, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a different thing. But these arguments are dumb anyway, because everybody wants to turn it into a big fucking pity party. But regardless, the reason why Reckful made the comments he did, I think, is because since he's never had to struggle financially, if you look at where Reckful's at in his life right now, just from what I've seen, it seems like he kind of aimless. He doesn't really have like any goal or huge desire or huge thing that he's working towards, right? He's got a fuck ton of money. He's accumulated a lot of money streaming, but like the viewership doesn't matter to him as much. Accumulating more money doesn't matter to him as much. And there isn't really any big accomplishment or achievement that he's looking for. So if you ask somebody like that, would you rather be poor? I think for him, it kind of seems like being poor would be fun, because at least he would have something to work for like every day, right? Oh, well, I can work for, which is what he said in the video, like, oh, the idea of waking up and having to work for money and earning money and all of that, that's like a really cool thing. So I think that I understand, obviously what he said is pretty dumb, but I understand why he said it, and I think it's important to understand why he said it. So there's that, I guess. So as a person who was poor for a short period, do you think the statements are somewhat valid? I mean, obviously, again, what he said was dumb, but I understand why he said it, and I think if you understand where he's coming from, it makes sense why he would make a statement like that, even if it is kind of dumb. Second question comes from Neverknowsbestest. Hey, Destiny, I just watched the Epic Realtalk of December 2014, and I was wondering if your thoughts on suicide have changed since then. Do you think a person has any obligation to live? Is there any point where you would say someone is justified in taking their life? I'm asking for a friend. I mean, you don't really have any obligation to live as long as you don't have anybody relying on you. If you have dependents, then it gets a little bit different there. If you've got children or like legal dependents, like if you've adopted somebody, or you have people that you financially provide for that you voluntarily took on, or maybe even involuntarily. I guess it would depend on the scenario. I mean, then it gets a little bit different. But I mean, I guess if you really wanted to kill yourself, then the choice is ultimately yours. For me personally, I don't think I would ever consider suicide as viable. It just, being an atheist, I kind of think that once you're dead, everything is gone, and I don't think there's much in the way of like pain or suffering or shitty scenarios that would honestly make me consider killing myself, just because the permanence of death is kind of frightening, or really the most frightening thing, right? To cease to exist is unfathomable, I think, to the human mind. What would it mean? I mean, like, what happens? What is the time between when you go to sleep and when you wake up? I mean, it's just nothing, right? If you, assuming you don't have a dream or something, right? So the idea that you could go to sleep and then not wake up, and then that nothingness extends into eternity, right? These are all thoughts that are inconceivable, right? You can, whatever poetic waxing and waning and you want to do, it's really inconceivable. Nothing at the end of the day will help you understand what it is like to not exist. So that's a really scary thought for me. The most scary thought, probably, is the permanence of death. So did I get that across? I could never do it. I would never kill myself. And I would encourage other people not to kill themselves, because usually when people are killing themselves, it's over pretty dumb reasons. Like, when I say dumb reasons, I mean things that are probably avoidable. Even things like clinical depression and whatnot, you can deal with them if you get a therapist, if you make steps to move your life in a better direction. Talk to somebody who can give you the tools necessary to identify unhealthy thought patterns and, work your way through those without, turning into a really mentally fucked person. Like, there are things you can do. And I know maybe that makes some people irritated, but I don't know. I don't think suicide is a very good thing. I don't think it's a rational thing. And I just don't see it as a good solution to anything ever. Like, I can't think of very many things in life that warrant killing yourself, short of like some horrible impairment where you lose like both of your arms and your eyes and your fucking ability to hear and shit. Like, maybe I'd start to get closer to considering at that point. But yeah, I don't know. I have a very, very negative view of suicide. I think it's a very unintelligent thing. And if you've got dependents on you, it's 50 times worse, because now you're fucking other people over as well. That being said, if there are people that are, I don't know, if it's just like friends and family, I don't know. There's a lot of different ways to look at this. I stand by my answer before. I mean, I guess, like, don't be, yeah, no, that's it. Yeah, I stand by that answer. The final thing comes from, I guess, because now I know people listen to it. I guess what I'm thinking of is, like, if somebody is like super fucked and super depressed and they try to reach out to people and nobody gives a fuck, and then that person kills himself, you can't really act sad afterwards. Like, one thing that I really don't like, I really don't like the death culture in the United States. Probably in most of the Western world, I can only speak for the U.S. We worship death way too much. Everybody, you've got 400 people that show up for fucking funerals and wakes and all this shit. And there was an episode of The Golden Girls. I watched this shit all the time when I was growing up. And there was a very poignant episode with Sophia, where Sophia has a wake, right, which is, I think, the thing you go to give a speech or to talk, and she remembers somebody's life before the funeral, I think. And she popped out and she was alive. And everybody was so shocked and upset to see her. Like, what the fuck? We came all the way out here. We traveled all this time, spent all this time to come visit you for the fucking wake, and you're not even dead? And Sophia's main thing in that was, well, I just wanted a chance to see everybody while I was still alive, right? I think that we have this really weird, obsession with, like, once somebody's dead, we do the big funerals to remember them and blah, blah, blah. And sometimes I worry that we don't pay enough attention to people when they're still alive. I know that having a child made me view mortality and all of that a tad differently, really in relation to my parents. I would hate to, I don't know, I would hate to lose somebody, and then the final moments that I spend with them is spent with their corpse in like a funeral hall. Like, that just seems like a really negative experience to me. I don't like the obsession with funerals and all of that. If somebody is really fucked mentally and somebody is having a really hard time, talk to them or help them out, or do something. And if you don't, and if you ignore them and you shirk them all the time, don't fucking post on social media when they fucking off themselves because you were too selfish or too, nonchalant or didn't give a fuck to help them when they were actually alive. I don't really know if that's really related to that whatsoever. But yeah, just the random musings. I'm going to the third question from Dranzogger. Have you ever considered playing rhythm games? You talked about how you don't like chess/Hearthstone type games because of the lack of mechanical skill. Maybe you'd enjoy rhythm games due to the sheer amount of mechanical skill required. So the problem... No, not the problem. I'm sorry. I used to play these games, actually. I used to play Guitar Hero quite a bit with Kyle. Back in high school, no, not in high school, in college, I think, but between work and school, I never really had the time to invest a ton of time into learning this shit. Also, I'm playing a real instrument. You feel like shit if you spend like 2 hours playing Guitar Hero and you could have actually put it towards, like, for me, my alto sax, or in a real guitar, like, you kind of feel like, fuck, like, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, fuck, I've got, like, the fucking all the high scores I've done on Masters or Expert or whatever, like every fucking level in Guitar Hero and 100% of a few songs. And I can't even play real guitar. Like, what the fuck am I doing with my time? I don't know. If I spent like a fuck ton of time doing rhythm games, I feel like I would have to, like, just put the time into my saxophone, or at least my fucking piano again, Maybe you'd enjoy rhythm games. Yeah. So I don't know. I mean I like the balance of strategy and mechanics, and rhythm games have no strategy and it's all mechanics, whereas RTS and MOBAs have a healthy amount of strategy and a healthy amount of mechanics. I like the combination of two. FPS is similar. I think that like in another universe I could have grown up playing FPS games if I hadn't been into Brood War so much growing up and transitioned to StarCraft 2. I mean I played a fair bit of TF2 growing up. I played a lot of Call of Duty 2 on the Xbox. Um, so yeah, I don't know. I like the, or I do know. I like the combination of strategy and mechanics. The both of them being there is very important. Only strategy games like Hearthstone are very boring to me, and only mechanics, games like OSU or whatever, are also kind of boring to me. I think the mesh of the two is very exciting. Um, wow, fuck. I'm only at 10 minutes and 40 seconds. I guess we'll do one more quick bonus question. This one comes from Demonica. What is your what do you think are the worst parts of Donald Trump's current campaign? No, I'm fucking with you guys. That's all I got. I'll see you next week on Monday, number 18. Have fun, guys. Peace out. Well,